Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Paperstac Podcast. My name is Burky, and I am not here with Rick Howland today. I'm instead here with Pei and Nino from NetWorthy. They flew all the way in from Houston, Texas to talk about notes in NetWorthy and how they can work together and help Paperstac users invest. Welcome.
Thank you. I mean, we're live outside in Orlando. The weather's perfect. What more can you ask for? Thanks for having us, Brett.
So this is the best time to be in Orlando. This been the summer, we've been sweating by now. So
Yeah.
I know these people from some networking groups, and I like what they're doing, the system they've been doing. They've been buying notes on Paperstac. The process they have, I also follow to. Not as cool as what they're doing, but I'm getting there. I'm in the beginning stages of it. But tell them what NetWorthy is and why, as a note investor, they might be interested in something like that.
So NetWorthy, we are a community of lenders. So we have gathered a bunch of people who are like-minded, who want to invest in different varieties of things, and we trial and error many different things. And real estate, direct fix and flips, lending to fix and flips, you name it, we've done it. And I actually personally did the Paperstac Academy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And through that, and I think
Me as well. Yep.
through that, it just gave us an epiphany that these are great. You have an asset that's tangible.
Yep.
Is there? If anything happens, you still at least have an asset that you can rely on. But at the same time, you don't have roofs, rats, and tenants that you have to worry about. So we kind of got into this space, and the challenge was when we were trying to do it on our own, it was 100% of our own money in there.
Right.
And it felt a little scary at first.
Yeah.
But once we connected with fellow investors and like, hey, why don't we JV? That became one of our things. Like we JV into a lot of different things to just test it out. And that became kind of our bread and butter. It just works.
What was interesting is that with Pei and I, when I first met her, it was always, how do we spread out the risk? And that JV being a joint venture, that be, okay, look, there's an investment opportunity. I don't want to put my full $10,000 in there. Well, hey, do you want to go 5,000 and 5,000? Well, let's do that. That helps to mitigate the risk. And of course, we have our business partner here as well. We said, okay, well, if we can add more people, we add more diversification. It lowers the risk. And pretty quickly, we had people that were asking us, hey, well, I want to joint venture with you guys. Hey, I want to put some money in. So then we almost started shouldering the responsibility of how do we find these investments.
Right.
And like Pei said, we tried different avenues of real estate. And when I took the Paperstac Academy, I realized, well, this is really interesting, but the learning curve was pretty hot.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I remember you were fundamental in getting me my first note, introducing me to Alex Frauler, right? I remember that, and he held my hand step by step through the first note that I bought. And on our community, everyone talks about notes, but there's that conversation of doing it, but then no one actually does it.
Yeah.
And we ask why. What is it about? What's the hesitancy? Because Paperstac does it all for you. Right. The platform is there. So why are people not pulling the trigger? And what we realized is people get into this game of passive income. What's the first word?
Passive.
Yeah.
Passive income. Yeah. And so with us, what we decided to do with the company is, okay, what if we can provide a product where similar to notes, our product is amortized over 3 years. But instead of them as the lenders having to go out and do the research and put their full 10,000 into one note, and what happens if something defaults?
Yeah.
Their money's up. Versus if you can go into kind of a crowdfunding where it's multiple notes, you get just pay this person, pay this company, I get my monthly payments for 36 months.
Fully diversify into multiple notes.
Right. So if one note goes bust, well, we're in a plethora of these notes. So then ultimately it gives people some flexibility, more passive, just makes it a little bit easier. And that's what we spent pretty much all day yesterday
And
talking.
it kind of lowers the barrier of entry as well.
I see that. I mean, also too, like sometimes there might not be a note that meets everyone's buy box. So that's sometimes why people are hesitant. They're looking for certain notes in certain areas. Like I only want to buy in my backyard. I only want a performing note that yields this. But it's a lot easier just to say, here's $10,000. Provide me this percent, this much every month. And why is it that you guys are doing it in this method? What's the goal? You guys are creating like different ways of passive income, and then with the goal of slowly getting out of the rat race.
Well, our community is very much about leveraging other people's money to jump into investments. So later on we can show numbers and whatnot. But when we are doing that kind of stuff, it's almost, we immediately need, if we're borrowing money, I need to immediately put that to work. I don't have time to do due diligence for 6 months because I'm paying from day one interest from there. I need something immediate. And also there's a certain criteria that we look for specifically. Namely, we want these to pay out in 36 months. Maybe more is okay, but ideally 36 months. We want our money back so that we can redeploy the same leverage over and over again. Our goal is to create large volume of money working for us, paying reasonable return, rather than putting my money out there chasing after the high return and then potentially risking the whole thing. So we're doing it in a safer manner. No investment is 100% guaranteed, but we're just trying to mitigate the risk.
Well, and here cash flow is king, right? So think about it. If you had to accumulate $10,000 to do your first note, let's say you love notes, but you need to save your way. Let's say you only have $200 of cash flow or $500 of cash flow. It's going to take you a few years to get that first $10,000.
Right.
And we just said, what if you put it into a note and that note doesn't pay out as expected? You've lost all your savings.
And time.
The power of leverage and what we're trying to do with our community is, okay, both the education, but also the knowledge of saying, all right, we're going to borrow money, leverage that money, put it into that asset. We said we had $500 cash flow. We're going to take what the note is paying. Let's say it's paying $500 plus our $500, $1,000 a month. And maybe we borrowed $5,000. So now we're going to take that. We're going to pay down that line of credit that we borrowed from.
Right.
It's going to take us 5 months to do that. But what did we say NetWorthy is doing? It's paying for 36 months.
Yeah.
So after 5 months, we've paid off the money we borrowed. But that note still has 31 more months left on it if you're doing it by yourself. Well, that's great. What are we going to do? Are we going to sit on our hands? No, we're going to do it again.
Yeah.
We're going to borrow that same money out, buy another note.
Yeah.
So that helps. That alone, that's called velocity banking.
Yep.
That alone helps people mitigate their risk every time they do a $5,000. But you tell me, is it reasonable to find notes out there for $5,000 that are performing monthly payments for 36 months? Possible, but
it's not every day. Usually the terms are a little bit longer. Well, right in times it's usually typical is like 120 on like land and then 360 on mortgages, like houses.
Sure.
That you're acting. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's not too often you see, unless it's a hard money loan. That's right. That might be 24 or 36 months, but that's not typical.
And so then the reason what I was just mentioning with the 36 months, why we kind of look at that sweet spot is because we don't want to take too long to pay down that money we just borrowed.
Right.
Because if we're taking 5 years to pay it off, well, now we're paying a lot in interest. Because remember, money's not free. We have to pay the bank that interest.
Right.
But that interest is spread out over the year. If we pay it back in 5 months, we're not paying back a year's worth of interest.
Right.
We're paying back 5 months worth of interest. So therefore, our cost to borrow that money is significantly less than what we're making on the investments.
Yeah. What's funny is sometimes people don't get the idea of like, because I've said this to other people, like, well, what do you borrow your money at? I'm like, well, it's like at 7.5. It fluctuates. It's it's variable. Yeah, it's variable. So, but it's at like 7.5, right? And like, that's a lot of money. I'm like, it's an annual percentage rate. You're like, think of it that way. If I borrow for 4 months and I buy something, I pay it off 4 months. I'm like, okay, well, that's not 7. It's 7%. That's like, I don't know, 2.5.
Well, not only that, because remember, every single month, you're making a payment towards that line of credit you borrowed.
Your balance will ever decrease.
Your interest rate is on the remaining balance. So if you have $5,000 outstanding, but then you make a payment for $1,000, now you're only paying 7% on the $4,000 annualized. So your actual cost at the end of the year, if you do this for a little bit, that bank will send you a statement of the interest that you paid for that year. If you divide that by 12, that's your actual cost per month to borrow that money. And it's way less than the 7.5% or the 7% annually because you're paying it off. And every time you borrow it back out, you restart the calendar.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not that you have it ever. That's why we want to borrow, because people always ask,
why don't I use my own cash, out of my own cash that I saved 5 years already that's sitting there? Why can't I use my own cash? Sure you can.
Yeah.
But you just told me it took you 5 years to save that money.
Yeah.
That time is lost. As there is opportunity cost.
Is there two words that, one was velocity banking, you just said it, the other one just a second ago, and I totally slipped my mind. But you're right, the way you're borrowing the money on just a shorter time periods is not
Right.
the 7.5%.
So it's what it is. If we could do a visual, I would draw a picture where on this side, you are paying on an ever decreasing balance
Right.
when you're borrowing. But on the note side, what we're doing, we're earning interest on an ever increasing. So it's the direction of the interest that makes a difference. I'm creating a large volume. We, in our community, typically will leverage the same source of line of credit 3 to 4 times per year. So just imagine $10,000. In 1 year, I'm putting the same $10,000 into notes 4 times. So it's $40,000 of asset that I'm creating, building up.
Right.
But on this side, I'm just still using the 10,000, and then every month I'm decreasing it. By the 4th month, I pay it off. I borrow again, and then by the 4th month, I pay it off. I'm never leveraging for the whole year and not paying it, right? I'm always paying it off.
That makes sense. And all these loans are usually interest only.
Do you want to borrow simple interest?
Yeah. Simple interest only. Yeah.
That's right.
That's something that people. It's interesting once you start learning about how interest rates work, different types of your interest only versus amortized, and it's and once you understand that and how it's like almost like this leveraging, you're like juggling different money sources. Yep.
It's funny, I don't know who said this, but those who understands interest earns it. Those who don't understand interest pays it.
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
I like that.
I like that. I mean, and it's going back to why we look at why the monthly payments matter. Because if it takes you a long time even though it is simple interest, you still want to avoid paying that high amount on the interest.
Right.
So that's why we want to make sure those payments are pretty high over those 36 months, as opposed to spreading it out over 360 months.
Yeah.
And that's where, for us personally, and again, keep in mind, NetWorthy and our podcast is a reflection of us as individuals.
Right.
What would we put our money into? Okay, well, we want to put it into notes that are going to pay us 36 months, because that will help us. It's called stack. Every time we do a cycle where we borrow from here, pay an investment, and then use our cash flow to pay it off, that's one stack. Pei mentioned we do about 3 or 4 stacks per year. We want to stack quick, not too quick, right? We don't want to be doing it every month or two, because then we're not allowing for the correct velocity to happen. Right. There's that sweet spot of making it work. And the reason why we like the 36-month mark is because it gives us a high enough cash flow to pay off that line of credit fast enough to be able to turn it again. And so that's where, going back to Paperstac and notes, for us, it was, all right, well, we've done notes, and I'm in a 10-year note with Alex. It's paying me $180. If that was a 3-year note, it would be paying probably triple.
Right.
That would speed up my stack faster. So how can we use that product? Well, what's nice about what we're doing is we have time on our hands as the company, because going to our stories a little bit, Pei and I are both financially free.
Right.
We've been doing this business a lot longer than I have, but we've been doing this for a long time. So for us, we don't need to rely on the performance to pay us.
Right.
We're not taking distributions. We're not millionaires because of that. We're successful because of what we were doing before it.
Right.
So it gives us the flexibility to say, you know what? We're going to take our lender's money, invest it into the notes. After 36 months, because we're paying amortized notes, their money's back. So if Paperstac's note is still paying us for 3 more years, well, that's all profit to the company. And we're not going to hide or we want people to know how we make our money, how that sausage is made, if you will.
Right.
Because then people can understand.
It's a little bit of delayed gratification, right?
Yes.
So we're blessed.
Think long term.
Yeah, we're blessed in a situation where we didn't quit our daytime job so that we can do this, so that we need a paycheck. Where's my W-2 paycheck? Yeah. We're not in that situation, so thank God. And also thank God for the understanding velocity banking that allows us to do this. So we do this ourselves as well. So it's not just like, hey, let's see if this idea flies. No, we've done it ourselves, and then now we're like, hey, other people can. When we talk about what we do, the number one question, I'm sure you agree with me, is always, but where can I buy these things?
Right.
Right? And we can just set them in the wild, say, hey, go and look for your cousin and see if they want to borrow money. That's not a very comfortable situation for most people.
Right.
So that's where the inspiration came in for our company. So if we're telling people that, you need to do this, you need to go find these type of structured notes to get your system going, well, we need to give people some direction. We need to help them.
Education.
Right. And that's all we're about. We are just about helping people understand, first of all, the mechanics of how everything is done, then showing them like, you don't have to get notes from us. You could get it directly from Paperstac. You can find your cousin Vinny and lend it to your cousin Vinny if that's what makes you comfortable. But we are offering a resource.
Yeah.
And say like, hey, we can bundle these on your behalf, make sure it fits the criteria of what works. And instead of going a la carte, looking for these things yourself, we are the happy meal.
Well, I mean, it goes to, so Pei, your background, obviously being a teacher, your husband as well, just being very influential in that way. It goes to a sense of providing education. So you were on our podcast, Finding Financial Fitness, where we're talking about resources and strategies to become fit, but also become wealthy, with the overall goal of just being happy and living a fulfilled life. And one of those strategies with education is to allow people to learn. And if they come in, they listen to the podcast, they talk to us, they start doing their own stacks. Well, maybe they start realizing, hey, I want to do these notes on my own. Well, what's great is that when we had you on the show, right, you talked about the academy. People can go in. We're not hiding what we're doing. If you want to go and buy notes directly, by all means. We're coming at it from a point of, look, we understand time is valuable. We know people like what you guys are offering, but don't have the time nor the desire to go out and learn it. So what if, and I speak from experience here, we wanted it passive. It took Alex holding my hand through the whole thing to me to feel comfortable to do it. But now it's, okay, well, if there's a company that can do it for you, you just, as passive as can be, you wire the money, you get your monthly payments, and whatever happens on the back end, the company will take care of it. Well, I like that. And if I like it, and if it fits for our model, it's likely going to fit for other people's models as well.
No, I get it. I mean, yeah, I have notes, but I will probably put money with you guys as well here, because it's always too, like, the timing of, well, this for me, for example, like knowing, okay, I've bought my last note and then I paid that down, and now I'm looking for the next one. If it's not immediate, kind of waiting around.
Well, time is money. And people, whether you're doing the stacking model or if you're just saving money, time is money. If you have money sitting in a checking account, right now interest rates on the checking, on those high yield savings account have come down a little bit. But if you're having that money there while you're doing your research, trying to find your perfect note, and you have a lot of conferences and you take 1 or 2 months, think about the opportunity cost of those 1 or 2 months, of what you would have made in those 2 months, of how fast how many stacks you could have done as a result. Because just like money compounds, so does time.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for people to want to learn it, but know your lifestyle and know what you're after. If you're after cash flow, we learned this the hard way. Me, myself, this year, I realized, well, I want these big returns, but that's gonna take time for me to learn it. Versus, instead of trying to go for the home runs, do what I know works. Infinite banking concept with free love. Going for what works and just doing it time and time again, getting those reps in, that's what's gonna work. So now, we're all about making our money work fast and 3-4 uses of the dollar. If I know my stack is coming up in 2 weeks, I'm preparing where I'm going. All right, I'm putting my money into NetWorthy, I'm gonna wire at this point. So the moment I take that money out, it's not sitting in my checking account. It's going directly into the company so I can start getting payments right away and just continue to move that money out. You don't need to be as obsessed.
It's like water, right? You don't want your water to be standing still. That's when it starts to die.
Yep.
So you want to flow it constantly.
Yeah.
Money is, well, we do active work and earn income and whatnot. All that money flows through our hands, and we let them sit. The typical people let them sit in a checking account. That's like the worst place. Like, please don't let it sit in your checking account, right? Use it, and average people are going to use it to pay down debt first. I'm like, hey, let's just redirect that flow to benefit us first, then use the profit of what you're earning to take care of the debt.
Yeah.
Just a little tweak to the system, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's very true. And the other thing that you guys mentioned that a lot of people just forget about is consistency. Yes, I understand, like, a lot of people always like to brag about their home runs and their, hey, I did this, I knocked it out of the park, I made this amazing deal. That's awesome. That's really cool. It's the boring stuff that really makes success.
And I wish people would know that. And this is what we talk about on our podcast. Again, the title being Finding Financial Fitness. The reason why that whole thing started is because you just mentioned at the gym, the same disciplines that are required to be successful in the gym, be it losing weight, gaining muscle, are the same disciplines that are going to make you financially free. Because if you're consistent, you go to the gym, you save your money, you invest your money, time and time again, it'll work. And that's where a lot of it comes down to the psychology, right? The three of us and our business partner, we hit it off yesterday because you had this tick in your brain that kind of felt similar to us. And that's rare. But I think people listening to this podcast, whatever platform they're on, have that niche, have that desire for more. That's typically how it starts. I want to make more money, not knowing necessarily why, but typically they want to improve their quality of life. Well, how do you improve your quality of life if you have all the money in the world, but you don't have your health? I know you value your health as well. Pei does. Most people that are in this industry do, because they've seen what money and being physically fit can do for them. And with Paperstac, with notes, with even what NetWorthy is doing, this is an avenue. And if we can help people, educate them, provide them the resources, because it's one thing to teach the strategy.
Yeah.
But then the number one question that we get then is, like she said, where am I putting this money to? Where's this amortized product? I don't know what this, I just learned what amortization is. I don't know what company does this. I go into the bank, they look at me like, oh, you want to buy a home loan? It's like, I don't want to do that. So providing the resource and having people like you that we can work together with to have these opportunities, I think it's a win-win for, like you said, for everybody.
That's true. This is going to be a 2-part series where we kind of get the concept, what NetWorthy is currently, kind of meeting the founders, and then also to knowing where they're buying the notes. So the next part's going to be where we're breaking it down on a whiteboard.
Yeah, blowing people's mind.
Well, it is mind-blowing. So definitely get a piece of paper or pencil, because yesterday I couldn't sleep last night. I was just so excited about the numbers and running by numbers, and just sitting there last night till like 11:30. I was like, I got to go to sleep. But so I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add, and maybe after this we jump into the whiteboard stuff.
Yeah, we're so excited to do that. So
Yeah, stay tuned for more.
Hello and welcome back to the second part of the Paperstac Podcast, where we are breaking down the NetWorthy strategy of investing in mortgage debt. So I know nothing about this part. I'm still learning, just as you are behind the watching it from the video. So I'm going to go ahead and take a seat, and I'm going to let them roll and do their thing.
hey everyone,
Welcome back.
Welcome back, NetWorthy here.
Yeah.
And with our community,
We should caveat that.
Yeah.
If obviously you guys will have this recording, but we did do something very similar. There's a PowerPoint that if y'all want to follow along,
That's right.
episode 32 or 29.
30.
Episode 30 of the Finding Financial Fitness Show goes through all of this with a PowerPoint format. If you wanted to follow along, there's going to be some tweaks in terms of numbers, but the concept is the same. So sometimes when you're learning a novel concept, obviously pause and rewind, but it's good to have multiple resources. So part one, we discussed the theories of all of this, of how NetWorthy is going to invest in Paperstac notes, and how that's going to provide a monthly stable payment for 36 months. But now we want to show big picture how this is all going to look consistent. We talked about consistently hitting, not going for those home runs. So, Pei.
That's right. And typically, if you're not in our community yet, or just any average people out there, what happens is you save, right? We save until we have enough built up to invest. So a typical saver, if you are, do really good at what you do, you save about $2,000. We all can kind of collect some money together, save $2,000, and we put that in a savings account, and we wait about 10 months till you have about $20,000 to deploy. But the way that we do it, and we've been doing this for a couple of years, is we leverage so that we can get into the investment faster. We kind of shave off a couple months of doing so, and that time compounds, as we were just talking about. Yep. So I'm going to go down to maybe Federal Credit, whatever bank, and get a personal line of credit. And that has to be a revolving simple interest line of credit that we talked about. And we are going to go into NetWorthy via Paperstac notes. Right, or
Paperstac
notes via NetWorthy. And NetWorthy will structure these notes to be perfectly timed, that it's 36 payments with a fixed amount coming back, because it's an amortized note. Your principal and interest is included in this payment. So it's not just interest only, it's amortized. So we want to buy amortized debt, we want to leverage simple interest.
Yep.
That's how we
want to do it.
And
for people who are wondering, this number right here is calculated of an interest of 12%.
Roughly.
Amortized roughly 12% over 36 months. That's how the 320 is coming.
Yeah. So we want to take our $2,000 cash flow that we were hoarding in our savings account, and we're going to add our brand new $320 of cash flow coming in from the NetWorthy notes, and we're going to combine it together, 2320, and we're going to use that to pay off $10,000. And by just doing that consistently, it will take us 4.3 months to pay off $10,000. what do you do after you pay it off? You still have 31. You have like what? No, actually, you have still 32.
31 and a half.
Yeah, so you have about 31 months of $320 coming in. What do you want to do? Do you want it to stop? Obviously not. We're going to keep going. This is we got base 1. Now we got to go base 2.
Yep.
We got to do another stack. We're going to leverage the same exact 10,000 because it's revolving. They will let you do it. 10,000, and we're going to go and purchase another stack of notes that's going to pay us $320 again for another 36 months. So it's a staggered way of getting into an investment, building that volume as we were talking about. So now my volume, including my own personal cash flow, is going to create $2,640 per month to come back and pay off my $10,000 that I leveraged from the bank. Right? And we talked about how every month, because you're reducing the balance that you owe by $2,320, you're not, even if this was 10%, you're not actually paying that much interest.
Right, and we talked about that on part 1 about the cost of borrowing, because remember, in month 1, you're going to be paying $2,320, so you're actually going to be only paying interest on the $6,700 that's left over, and again, it's a rolling balance, so because you're paying it off so fast, you never actually pay the full amount. As I mentioned in part 1, you'll get at the end of the year an interest statement that shows you how much you've actually paid. So keep that in mind.
And that's your actual cost.
Correct.
Because the 10,000 is not your money.
Correct.
It is somebody else's money.
Yep.
And people always kind of think that this whole thing is theirs. No, you're actually leveraging somebody else's money. So after your second stack is paid off in 3.8 months, you want to do another one, right? Because you're starting to speed up this stack of investments. So we will leverage the $10,000 again, and we'll buy another stack of notes. Same thing, pay us $320 for 36 months, and that's going to bring our total to $2,960, including our own personal cash flow, to pay off the same $10,000. That's going to bring us down to 3.4 months on the third stack. So we actually will keep going, because right now it's still a little slow in paying off this line of credit. So we definitely want to keep it going. And
so while Pei's doing this, I really want to emphasize a point. So because the question that you might be asking right now is, okay, well, I have access to Paperstac. Why can't I just go off and buy my own notes? And the answer is you can. But keep in mind, as Brett very well mentioned in the earlier show, in the earlier episode, these notes, it's going to be very difficult to find them that's going to fit the criteria of being 36 months at a 12% interest rate. And so you might be asking, well, who cares? And the answer is because imagine in this scenario, instead of getting the $320, you were getting $100. Well, then now your cash flow total is only going to be about $2,100, which means it's going to take you almost 5 months to pay off that 10K. And remember, because of velocity banking, the velocity component of that, we're looking at time. The faster we can flip this money, the sooner we can go up. And as Pei's going to show right now, because we did 3 flips, 3 stacks that first year, we're going to go up to 15K. And going up to $15,000 allows us to put more into the company and gives us more monthly cash flow, which allows us to go up and up and up. So what we're really after here is we're going after big, large stacks. The inverse to that, a question that sometimes people ask is, well, okay, if flipping every 3 months is good, well, why not do it every single month? This is where you gotta keep in mind. Now, we're not gonna project out all the way to 36 months, but remember, 36 months, it's both your principal and interest. So what that means is at the end of 36 months, your first stack that you did is going to fall off. It's going to be $320 that's going to drop off. What you don't want to happen is you don't want these to keep happening every single month. That's why you don't want to stack too fast, because then these numbers start dropping off and then it's going to take you a little bit more time to rebuild that up. That's why we always say 36 months, 3 to 4 stacks per year is roughly the gold nugget, the golden range of what we're trying to do. And as you'll see here, we'll get in, we're looking at about 4 or 5 stacks total to get us to that 15K. And you're gonna ask again, well, why are we going from 10 to 15? The rule of thumb, and this isn't a hard rule, you could change it as you see fit. Once you're able to start paying your stack down in under 3 months, you're going to want to increase your stack size by 1.5 times. Not 1.5%, Brett. We were just talking about this last night, but 1.5x. So all you would do, you would take your 10,000 and you would multiply that by 1.5 and you're going to get 15,000. And again, these numbers, the beauty of this model is that it works at all levels. So you might be thinking, I have more than $2,000 cash flow. I have $10,000 or I have $20,000. No problem. Add a few zeros. And the beauty of this is that the bigger these numbers go, the bigger these numbers go. And the more and more consistent you are with this and the bigger this gets, there comes a point where this number pretty quickly is going to pass what you're bringing in from your own W-2 job or your 1099 job. And where you become financially free, where you become job optional, is when you can, this can pay for your lifestyle. The sooner you can get these numbers bigger and add a couple more zeros here, the sooner you're done.
Yeah.
So,
and also we want to remind people the example of that penny doubled every day example, the compounding curve. The compounding curve in the first couple years is very painful. Okay, so anybody can Google penny double every day and it will show you the calendar. For the first 15 days of that penny doubling, you're not looking at tremendous growth. And that's what this first 3 years will look like for your plan. But once you pass that third to fourth year, that compounding curve starts to grow, and this is when the numbers get really big. And that's when we're talking about diversification. That's why you want it, because you don't want to throw in $100,000 of your money into one node and risk 100% of that in one product. You want to try to spread out the risk, and that's why crowdfunding this is what we're after. So at this point, this is our fourth stack, right? We're doing still a 10K stack, and we're adding $320 to our monthly passive cash flow. So we're using, by the fourth stack, we're probably still doing this within the first 12 months.
Correct, that would be the end of the year.
This will be the end of the year. Let's say you started January. This is like near November, December, you do your last stack. You're bringing your passive income to $3,280, right? That's including your own cash flow. That's paying down to 3 months to pay off. And then if you want to do it one more time, just to be safe. Just
because it's your first time.
Yeah, this is your first time, you want to be conservative. Do another 10, nothing wrong with that. And just get another 320 passive coming in from the notes. And that's going to bring you to 3,600 passive income. And you're down to below 3 months payoff. This is when I personally will be like, hey, I'm ready. I feel confident about the whole mechanics now. I can go up, because even I can reverse engineer a little bit, right? If I go up to 15K based on what the numbers are already built here, I know I'm not going over 4 months. I'm comfortable going up. So even I increase $15,000, put that same thing into notes, bring me $480 because of the bump up.
Yep.
And that is going to allow me to have used $4,080 to pay off $15,000 of leverage. And the key thing here is we have to keep in mind all these notes that we are building for our community are 3 months amortized. So
3 years.
3 years. Yeah, 36 months. So you have to keep that in mind. 36 months from now, this note will expire. It will drop off from your passive income. So the bump up is super important. It's like riding a bicycle, right? When you're going uphill, you want to be on the little tiny gear so that you can pedal without too much effort and get up there. But once you get up to the plateau, you want to kick it up one bigger size gear. So it's a little bit harder to just get going, right? That increasing months, you have to put in a little oomph in there, and then you get to another smooth ride, and then you want to go up. So it's kind of a staggered method.
Well, and also the reason, as I mentioned when Pei was drawing it out, if you think about it, let's assume by your end of 36 months, let's just for simplicity's sake say that you haven't gone up from 15K yet. You're still at 15. And then your very first one drops off. So you drop off 320. Well, in that same year, you would have added a few 480. Let's just assume your time frame is similar. And as the 320 dropped off, you added 480. Well, now your drop off, quote unquote, is a negative. your current stack at the time only would have increased by 160. But you notice how you take almost a stutter step back, but it's not a fall, right? You're not dropping completely off. It's just so that if you look at the linear curve of success, it's never straight up. It's always up, staggered, but the overall trend is up. And it's the same thing with this concept. You're not going a straight line. You're not getting rich quick, right?
No.
You're getting rich close to guaranteed.
Yes.
That's what matters, right? And so we're kind of going at a little bit angled, but our overall trajectory is going up. So we're about 6 stacks in. Pause there. We have Brett obviously here. Brett, questions about this so far? Does it make sense?
Oh yeah, makes total sense. I guess the question is, when do you become financially free?
Ooh.
How long until this number is when it's like, okay, I can take out, just say that I have to make, let's just say like $7,000, $6,000 a month, right there is where I'm at. When can I take that out and say, okay, I'm good, I can do whatever I want?
So if you're looking at this passive, that's purple down here, that's the passive income coming in. We notice that part of this is your own personal cash flow, right?
2,000.
Yeah, is that 2,000 is your own money coming into the system. But at Financial Freedom Day, most likely you want to quit your job. That's typically what happens. So what you want to do is take this number and you kind of blow it out. You could actually just use Excel spreadsheet, build it out all the way out. When this number is big enough that you can take out about 10 to 15% of that, and the rest of that money can still go back into the investment to keep reinvesting. Just take that number, and that's the number that you need to build the system up until. It's that simple.
Yeah.
There's no magic to it. It's really just, it's math. Yeah. Math doesn't lie. You just use spreadsheet, simple. You could build it out.
Well, and if you understand the level of where you're going with it, right? In the beginning, once you understand this, and this is something I've really been emphasizing to people, is think about this. What happens every year if you do well at your job? You get a raise, right? You get it might not be much, but let's say you get a raise that's equivalent to $300 a month extra, so maybe $3,600 a year. That's a reasonable raise for most people. Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna get, what do most people do when they get a raise? Oh, I got an extra $300, I'm gonna spend it. I'm a hard worker. They spend it, their cash flow never changes. But now you're starting to see the world through a different lens. Now you're making an extra $300 a month. Well, our stacks are bringing us an extra $320. What if instead of having $2,000 of cash flow, we now have $2,300? That's the equivalent of almost doing 1 stack. So now imagine you did that on your second stack, you got a raise. This whole, if you look at it over the life of the whole stacking process, over your whole life, it all gets condensed. This $15,000 stack becomes 1 stack sooner. It comes to the 5th stack, which means you're gonna increase to 22,000 even sooner, which means you increase to 50, to 100, to 200,000, which means the sooner you do that, the power of compounding, the sooner you can pull off your 10, 15, maybe even 20% from it. And what does that look like? It's pretty simple. As I mentioned, add a 0 to this. If your stack here was 150,000, and that just adding another 0 here means now you have 40,000 of passive income a month. It's passive income with your active income, with your amortized notes. If you peel off 10%, which is $4,000, which in this case you'd be contributing about $20,000. But let's say you peel off 10% of that. That's $4,000. Well, one of you guys can quit. Maybe your spouse is working and she makes $50K a year.
Or go down part-time.
Right, go part-time. Right, so now you're able to, that means you can contribute $4,000 less, or maybe you guys really love your jobs and you want to be job optional and you want to go part-time. Well, you can take $4,000 from your monthly cash flow and use that for your expenses. Maybe your mortgage payment is $2,000 or $1,500. Well, that $4,000 will last you a few months of your mortgage payment. Now you're using your assets to pay for your liabilities the same Robert Kiyosaki way, but instead of having to wait years and years and years to save and save and save and buy real estate, you're doing this method in a condensed time. 5 to 10 years is typically what most people reach it at.
Right.
5 to 10
Or
years.
for someone who does love what they do, they don't want to quit because, you know, when we left our jobs, we got bored. And that's what we
that's why we're
do this.
That's why we're bringing it to you right now.
What you want to do is find what you love, do that, but don't do it because of the money.
Right.
Do it because you love to. But when you have this big enough, you could, if you love real estate, go take this money and buy up rentals if that's what people want. Take this money, I don't know, people love crypto. Go get the crypto that you love. Whatever you're into, you can take that 10% and do the longer term investments, right? These are all 36 months, so they fall off, right? So we're kind of constantly feel like, oh man, I gotta constantly be stacking. Yeah, that should become a way of life. You should never stop stacking.
It's the same thing with fitness.
Yeah.
Right? Just because you get to your goal physique, your ideal body frame, what do? Do you stop going to the gym? Do you stop eating healthy? No, of course not. You maybe you're not going as aggressive, but when you go into the gym, in order to maintain the physique that you built, the amount of effort required to put in is a third of the amount of effort it took to build that muscle. So when you were going to lose your first 20 pounds, the amount of meal prep and weight training and the intensity that you had to do that was significantly harder than when it comes to maintenance. Maintenance mode on this is literally 5 to 10 minutes every few months where, okay, you got the beginning of a new stack, I need to transfer it from this bank account to this company. Couple minutes. Every single month you're getting $320, you're parking it in your bank account, making sure at the end of the 3 months, I gotta make sure to pay this off and then borrow it right back out. That's maintenance. The learning curve that you had at first was steep, but once you get it, it's cruising. You're on cruise control the whole way. And at any point you can decide, you know what? I'm just gonna let it sit. Hell, if you're making enough money here, you can hire somebody to do this for you, right? You just hire someone to manage it for you if that's what you wanna do.
Yeah. But it's so easy, really. Once you get started,
you?
It doesn't take time to do this at all. And that's part of the reason why we did NetWorthy as a company, because we realized that, in the beginning, people don't have the time to do all those research on things to put their money into. And that was kind of a barrier with just feedback from people that we talk to. We do monthly meetups with our fellow investors that we're local to, and that's what we hear over and over again. They're like, I just don't have the time. I'm working. I'm trying to get this going. This is now becoming a full-time job, and that's not what we want. So, hence, we created this.
Right, and going back to Paperstac, right? Because there's so many ways you can go about doing this. You don't even need to do this model. You can go from being a saver to wanting to invest into Paperstac. Maybe that's the most basic level. Direct. I want to learn the academy. I have time. Great. Go get your notes. And the notes that you get are going to be extra passive income that comes in. Doing that method is going to take a little bit longer to get to your financial goal. All this is doing is just adding those turbochargers to get you to that same destination faster. Because before Paperstac, before investing, when you were saving, you were willing to work for the next, depending on your age,
what's
30.
40 plan, right? We work 40 hours a week for 40 years so that we can retire on 40% of the pay.
Correct. That was your original plan anyways. But then you found Paperstac and you're like, hey, I like this. These notes are really good. And it moved the needle a little bit. But then you started learning about stacking and you realized, oh, that moved the needle a little bit. Then you started realizing, well, check this out. Maybe you decide, okay, if I need to spend the $997 on the Paperstac Academy, what if the time that I used there was spent making more money at my job, picking up another shift? That's gonna bring me an additional $320 a month. And I can just put the money into NetWorthy. They're going direct. You like Paperstac because, you got Brett behind the camera. You like Brett. You wanna still be involved with Paperstac, but NetWorthy's doing it on your behalf. You don't even think about it. You put the money in, you bring an extra $300 a month for that same time you would have maybe studied the academy and picked up the actual logistics of note investing. Well, now everything's sped up. And the fun part for us is that this is just the beginning of all of this.
Yeah.
As Brett will tell you, and as others will tell you that have had conversations with us, or if you listen to our podcast, you'll realize, well, we talked about getting leverage from the bank's line of credit. Well, what about the infinite banking concept, where you have a line of credit, but the interest, remember we talked about the interest that you're paying right now, that interest is going out to the bank. Imagine if you get to recapture that interest back into your own bank. What if you were the bank and you were collecting that interest? Wouldn't that speed this all up faster? Right? There's so many.
You can be building multiple assets at the same time. right? You can be building your notes asset while you're using the same power of velocity banking to build your permanent asset of IBC policy. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so this is just a way to show a different strategy of how to get into note investing, because I really always like to ask the question, you're interested in getting to note investing, why? There's this book that was recommended to Corey Zigman that was on one of our podcasts. She's a big real estate investor. And the 7 layers of why. And if somebody gets into note investing, if you ask them one more level, why do you want to get into note investing? Well, I want to make money. Well, why do you want to make money? Well, I want to make money to be able to go spend more time with my family. Why do you want to spend time with your family? You keep asking yourself that question, you peel back the 7 layers of why, then you get to the root cause of what you're trying to achieve. And most of the time, it's not financial freedom. Financial freedom buys you time freedom. And that's what most people are after. And if you understand that, what are you going to look at? Whether it's Paperstac or buying a business or buying real estate, it's all with the same avenue of allowing you to have more time. And so this is a strategy that can help us get there faster, but safer.
Right. And as combine that with NetWorthy's method, it's passive.
That's the beauty of it.
So that along the way, you don't necessarily have to lose that valuable time that you were after, right? We talked about giving up the thing that you are trying to get after so that you can get more of it later.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to, I guess, have our cake and eat it too. We've been trained that way, and we just want to share that with
For sure. And Brett, going back, I know, again, you speak, I think, on behalf of the note community. I think you've always felt that this would be a good thing for people to hear and have access to. What do you think are some questions that people might have in addition, or anything else that you want us to kind of cover based? I know there's obviously a lot more we can.
Oh, we can definitely jump into that in another one. But I think a lot of people, at least people I've talked to at conferences, they love the concept of note investing. A lot of times they, like you said, busy, or some people just get cold feet, and some people like the idea. You know, it's kind of like if they don't ever take the leap, and actually maybe they actually fail or something like that, they never have to lose the dream in the brain. They're like, the dream's still there, I'm still winning. So I think what this can do is, saying, please still buy notes from Paperstac, but then also too, if you want to be able to, if you're one of those people that have, there's thousands of Paperstac users, there's a good proportion of people who have not taken the leap. And of course I can't endorse anything because I'm not a broker, but I mean, I'm just saying, if you wanted to find a way, there might be a better chance with NetWorthy of at least dipping your toes in the water. That's at least what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is only the beginning of a hopefully successful endeavor. And again, if you're interested in learning more kind of about what we do, Finding Financial Fitness, that's the podcast that Pei and myself host. And again, that no association with Paperstac, no association with NetWorthy. It was just for us. Like we said, I had retired from my career, and I'm like, what do we want to do? And Pei and I love to talk. We love to talk to people, and we figured, well, if we can do things like this on a kind of educational basis, that's kind of where the podcast venture came in. We had Brett on to talk about Paperstac as well. So
and even NetWorthy, we're just a community of fellow lenders.
Right, people like us.
Yep.
So there's plenty of resources out there for you. I mean, the biggest thing is to take action, and if we can help in any way facilitate that, we want everybody to be successful. I think that's the biggest goal. So I think we'll wrap it up there. I'm pretty sure we're going to have more of these as we've blown Brett's mind yesterday, and just kind of like as we mentioned, there's so much more we can add to, but we want to make sure people master the basics.
Fundamentals,
Always master the fundamentals before we start going into advanced strategies. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Brett.
Thank you.